नानारत्ननिबद्धमूलपिटप श्रीयुक्तवृन्दावने राधाकृष्णमहर्निशम्.
Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. From Eastern Canada, for the Saturday morning Bhagavad Gita reading and discussion from the unadulterated books of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're talking about truth in these classes because the truth is something which is very valuable to the human society. There are so many untruths that go on in this world. But the fact of the matter is, this world is a world of dreams. That's all it is. You think you're real in this body. You think you have a history, but that history is insignificant in relation to Krishna and to our spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are simply servants of the servants of the servants of the devotees of the Lord, and especially the pure devotee. You've heard me speak about this before at the time of my initiation. In 1971 in Detroit on Jefferson Avenue, it was a small temple room. It was a living room that they had assembled into a temple. There were Jagannath deities there. There was a big Vyasasana of Srila Prabhupada. We were all crammed into the room, and they called out my name, Bobby Hebert. And then, so I got up, I stumbled up to the front through the crowd, and Prabhupada looked at me, he asked me, what are the 4 regulated principles? I mentioned 2, and then he said, that's enough. And he said, but your name is Vishwakarma Das. I never heard that name before. We didn't have books that described any of the demigods. And there was a cheer. Oh, wow. Everybody was excited. And then Prabhupada looked at me and said, but you should never think that you are the chief engineer. But you should always remember, you are the servant of the servant of the servant of the chief engineer. In this way, you'll become great. So this was the first instruction from the Vyasasana that Prabhupada gave to me, and it is an instruction for everyone. And the most important thing is that we are servants of Srila Prabhupada. That is the essence of this philosophy, Guru Tattva. And if one dedicates himself to that particular service of the spiritual master, to spread Krishna consciousness unadulterated, without change. This has gone on after Prabhupada's demise. There's so much change that's gone on. Prabhupada calls it manufacturing. Just like with the Gaudiya Math, they manufactured a philosophy. And in the end, that whole wonderful movement of the Gaudiya Math was destroyed, Prabhupada says, exactly this way, by whimsical behavior. So in the same way, we're in a situation here in 2024 where this is Gaudiya Math Part 2. And we have all kinds of God brothers that have manufactured all kinds of philosophy, all kinds of different approaches to devotional service. Vijaya Pandit, I was just looking at a video by Vikash, somebody, Bhakti Vikash, and he was calling it the Neo-Krishna Consciousness Movement, that it has become totally changed. Of course, he gave no explanation why. Maybe it's because he's a fake guru, and everyone else that's taken that role as so-called Diksha Guru are fakes, imposters, pretenders, posers, cheaters, mundane people, misleading other people, and everybody is confused and there's huge chaos. So this is what's happened. This is reality. Someone would say, well, you're fault finding. No, we're not. The reality is there. All you have to do is see the new film on TV, national, international film by the Peacock Network that shows the history of ISKCON back in the 80s with Keith Ham in West Virginia. What was that about? Someone could say, well, why do you bring that up? Because it's in the news right now. It's not something we're just making up. Millions of people are seeing this story of the hypocrisy of this guru system. So unadulterated truth is the issue. One should not concoct, manufacture, or fabricate anything except what he hears from his spiritual master. And that is our position here at the Prabhupada Disciples Association, Hare Krishna Society, that we are not trying to invent a new process. And we're not interested in changing the philosophy to suit our own particular purposes. We're a non-institutionalized group. It's a group based on truth, Vijaya Pandit. Truth is the essence of this mission that we have. And that truth comes through the hard work and devotion of our spiritual master to his spiritual master to represent this philosophy without change. Absolutely. So, subsequently, let's move forward with the reading of the diaries, the beginning. Amazing, amazing pastime of Prabhupada working on his own without any help from anyone. And on February 5th, 1966, Prabhupada writes, now he's still at a very early stage of development. Remember, everyone, he arrived in September 19th in New York, 1965. So here we are in February in New York. One letter received from the President case of Alfred P. Sloan Foundation declined to help the cause. I shall reply the letter. Vegetables 31 cents and rubbing alcohol 43 cents. The total expenditures was 74 cents. Should have Prabhupada used rubbing alcohol as an aftershave lotion? Yes. On Sunday, February 6th, President Case replied to his letter. Cohen with Salak and other two ladies attended to today's meeting. I took meals at Dr. Mishra's apartment. There was no expenditure. So very small turnout to the discussion. Monday, February 7th, 1966. New York. Oh, we have some kind of interference, production chief. Today received one letter from Chandra Shekhar with enclosure of P.F. Sri Krishna's letter. P.F. Sri Krishna has supplied some addresses of which Lamport Expert Company is noted. The expenditures, butter and fruits, 71 cents. And one letter sent to Sally Agrawal to send 25 sets to Paragon Books immediately. So Prabhupada had a system. He had left books in Butler, Pennsylvania, and he was asking Sally to help him move them back into New York City to Paragon Books, where they were holding them as stock as well. But he had no facility for that, but he had come up with a plan to do this. On February 8th, 1966, Mr. Larry Bogart called today by me on phone. He advised to remind Mr. Morrow by letter. So I've sent him one letter today asking for an immediate interview. I purchased postage, $2.10. And today, Mr. returned from Florida. Cohen and Salak did not come today as promised. So Prabhupada was on his own. And then finally, on Wednesday, February 9th, 1966, this morning, I met the manager of SN Petchins 33 Riverside Drive, New York, 23, New York, for occupying apartment number 307 on rent. So he's going to move. Agreed. And in the evening at 4:30, $140 was paid as follows. Rent to commence on the 2nd of 1566. So that's February 15th, 1966, $70 and a security deposit. Yes, that still goes on. Of course, it's not $70 anymore, $70 and a total expenditure from Prabhupada's treasury, $140. She's moving forward. Tenant A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, formerly 1 year's lease, but can be vacated by 30 days' notice by registered post receipt token. Taken $40 from Mr. Cohen, of which book price $16.80 due to him, $23.20. Bus expenditures bus fare 30 cents, and rent above total $140.30. In denatured alcohol, 43 cents. So the expenditure is $140.73. Perfect accounting by the perfect spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. All glories to his mission and all glories to the mission of the Prabhupada Disciples Association. We'll move forward now with the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari and we'll await the wonderful class. I hope our God brother Yashodanandana Prabhu is here for the reading and discussion on the Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the mission of Sankirtan and Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Amaspa Paramangsa Paribhrajagacharya Sattara Smadhati Dhanta Saraswati Goswami Bhagavad Ki Jai Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Ki Jai Ramacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakti Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Bhog Gopinath Sam Khund Radha Khund Giri Godhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Guru Dwarka Dham Ki Jai Swami Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to their Summit. All glories to their Summit. Thank you very much.
All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Glories to you, Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:1. Narayanam namaskrityam Narayanam namaskritya Naram cheva narottamam Naram cheva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat Tato jayam mudirayat. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Narayana Rishi, who is the supramost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. As you all know, we read from the original 1972 Macmillan edition, the non-edited, non-adulterated version. Before we begin the reading of the shlokas from the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita as given by Prabhupada, I'm going to quote a few verses from a text called the Gita Mahatmya. This was in the original Bhagavad Gita by Srila Prabhupada. This is a very interesting description of 7 verses. Some claim that this Gita Mahatmya it's from the Padma Purana, and it was made very popular by Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. First text is Gita Shastram idam punyam yapatet prayatap puman Vishnu padam avapnoti vayashokadi varjitaha. Text number 1. He who studies this Gita scripture with humility is freed from fear and misery and attains the feet of Lord Vishnu. Text number 2. Gita adhyayana shilasya pranayama parasya cha neva shantihi papani purva janme kritani cha. That person who is in the habit of reading the Gita and who is also devoted to practicing pranayama, breathing exercises, is not touched by sins, even those done in his previous birth. We will continue with some of these other verses in the next class. Now we will read from the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, the various verses selected and given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam. When will Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatan Goswami, as well as Raghunath Dasa and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates Sri Lalita and Vishaka. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavana. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the devotees, the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Today we will be reading from chapter 10, text number 24. All synonyms, translations, and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Purudasam chamukyam mam, Purudasam chamukyam mam, Vidhi parta brahaspatim, Vidhi partha brahaspatim Sinaninam maham skandaha Sinaninam maham skandaha sarasam asmi sagaraha sarasam asmi sagaraha purudasam of all priests cha also mukhyam chief mam me vidhi understand Parta, O son of Prita, Brahaspatim, Brihaspati, Sinaninam of all commanders, Aham, I am, Skandaha, Kartikeya, Sarasam of all reservoirs of water, Asmi, I am, Sagaraha, the ocean. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Of priests, O Arjuna, note me to be the chief. Brihaspati, the Lord of devotion. Of generals, I am Skanda, the Lord of war, and of bodies of water, I am the ocean. Purport. Indra is the chief demigod of the heavenly planets and is known as the king of the heavens. The planet in which he reigns is called Indraloka. Brihaspati is Indra's priest, and since Indra is the chief of all kings, Brihaspati is the chief of all priests. And as Indra is the chief of all kings, similarly Skanda, the son of Parvati and Lord Shiva, is the chief of all military commanders. And of all bodies of water, the ocean is the greatest. These representations of Krishna only give hints of his greatness. Text number 25. Maharishinam Briguraham Giramasmi Maharishinam Briguraham Giramasmi Ekamaksharam Giramasmi Ekamaksharam Yajnanam japa yajñosmi, Yajnanam japa yajñosmi, Stavaranam Himalaya, Stavaranam Himalaya. Maharishinam, amongst the great sages, Brigu, Aham, I am, Giram, a vibration, Asmi, I am, Ekamaksharam Pranava, Yajnanam of sacrifices, Japa Yajnaha chanting, Asmi I am, Stavaranam of immovable things, Himalayaha the Himalayan mountains. Translation. Of the great sages I am Brigu. Of vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names, Japa. And of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Purport. Brahma, the first living creature within the universe, created several sons for the propagation of various kinds of species. The most powerful of his sons is Brigu, who is also the greatest sage. Of all the transcendental vibrations, the Om, Omkara, represents the supreme. Of all the sacrifices, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the purest representation of Krishna. Sometimes animal sacrifices are recommended. But in these sacrifices of Hare Krishna, there is no question of violence. It is the simplest and the purest. Whatever is sublime in the world is a representation of Krishna. Therefore, the Himalayas, the greatest mountains in the world, also represent him. The mountain named Meru was mentioned in a previous verse, but Meru is sometimes movable, whereas the Himalayas are never movable. Thus, the Himalayas are greater than Meru. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhakti Vedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad Vandanam Khadhyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshataha Adadadastrinam Danter Idam Yache Punaha Punaham Srimad Rupa Padam Bhoja Dhulishyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavatosmyaham Sadadasu Asmi Sarvata Tatkripa Pikshako Nityam Tatprishta Karomishvam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we see in this chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, so many opulences of Krishna are being described. Prabhupada is nicely summarizing this description. Prabhupada says, these representations of Krishna only give hints of his greatness. Everything in the material world and the spiritual world that has any qualification or any beauty is a representation of Krishna. Now, this is a very important point, because there's always been a class of men who deny and decry the existence of God. This is well known. It has existed since time immemorial. We see in the Vishnu Purana and also in the Bhagavad Gita that there exist two classes of living beings, the Sura and the Asura, those who are demons and those who are devotees, the pious and impious. Dva bhuta sarva lokesmin deva asura evacha. It is described that there's always two classes of living beings. Deva, those who believe in God, astikas, those who have a belief in the Supreme Person, and asura, those who do not accept the existence of the Supreme Lord. Vishnu Bhakta Smrito Deva Asurastad Viparyada. Those who are devotees of Lord Vishnu, they're considered Deva, or pious. Asurastad Viparyada, the demons, those who are atheists, are the opposite. Now here in the Bhagavad Gita, in this 10th chapter, it's important to note, Krishna is giving so many different explanations of his greatness, so that such persons who have an atheistic or doubtful or agnostic mentality can also get a chance to appreciate the greatness of Krishna. In this world, we see north of Nepal, north of India, there's a great mountain range, the Himalayas. Very great mountain range. Now that mountain range is a representation of Krishna. Even today, there are many persons, those who call themselves Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, They go to a place in the Himalayas to see a mountain called Mount Meru. It's almost like a complete triangle, like a pyramid, a triangular pyramid. And according to history, there was only one person in the entire history. He was a Buddhist monk who made it all the way to the top. No other person has ever gone there. It's considered a very sacred sacred mountain, because it is said to be the residence of Lord Shiva and Parvati. So according to Bhagavad Gita, that mountain range, the Himalayas, that is representative of Krishna. In South India, particularly in Tamil Nadu, there are many worshippers of Lord Shiva. And one of Lord Shiva's sons, Kartikeya or Skanda, this son of Lord Shiva is recognized to be the greatest warrior. He's a great warrior on behalf of the demigods. So there are many, many things, but one of the most important things here, it is described that of all the great sages, I am Bhrigu. Bhrigu is one of the Sapta Rishis, one of the original 7 mental sons of Lord Brahma. As we've often described, in this universe, the chief engineer of the universe, Lord Brahma, creates the planets and the different living entities on behalf of Krishna. Interesting story we heard in the beginning of this discussion. Vishwakarma Prabhu heard from Srila Prabhupada himself, telling that your name is Vishwakarma, but never think you are the chief engineer. I've heard similar stories of devotees that were initiated by Prabhupada, and when their name was read, Prabhupada made a comment, like there was one devotee that had been initiated in New Vrindavan, and he repeated his name without saying the word Das, and Prabhupada interrupted. Prabhupada says, no, your name is such and such, Das, Das, Das. Always think you are the servant. This is very important, because many times in this material world, we tend to forget. That's why we're here. We forget what we are. Several times, I've mentioned that story how Brahmananda Swami went to Srila Prabhupada to ask him, Prabhupada, why is it so difficult in the material world to be humble? It seems to be very hard. And Prabhupada replied to him, no, it is not hard. All you have to do is understand what you really are. What you really are is spirit, soul, and you are 1/10,000 the tip of a hair. It is described in the Katha Upanishad, as well as the Shvetashvara Upanishad, Balagara Shatara Bhagasya. Very nice text. It says, if you take the tip of the hair, divide it into 100 parts, and again divide it 100 parts, 1/10,000 the tip of the hair, that is the size of the spirit soul, the Jivatma, which resides in the heart. According to the Vedas, there are 10 kinds of hair floating in the human body. And the soul is residing within the heart. Now, that is, if someone understands what you really are, then it's not difficult to be humble. But under the influence of Maya, the illusory energy, we forget. We start thinking we are very important, that we are born in such and such country, that we are a man, that we're a woman, that we're intelligent, we're not intelligent, that we're born in a good family, that we are so beautiful, not so beautiful. So many different upadis. Upadis means designation, artificial designation, under the influence of Maya. And then we start thinking, oh, this belongs to me, this belongs to him. So many false ideas, false conceptions. That's why Prabhupada told Brahmananda Swami, if you think you understand that you are very small and that you're always servant of Krishna, then you will not be artificially puffed up. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat paratvina nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyati. Srila Prabhupada used to often quote that the fundamental definition of bhakti is when one becomes free from all designations. Sarva upadi vinirmuktam. Vinirmuktam, to become free, to become liberated from false conception. Tat paratvina nirmalam. Then one can remain in a pure status of life. Rishikena rishikesha, to engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses, Rishikesha. Sevanam bhaktiruchyate. This is the beginning of bhakti. So here in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining a very important point. Just like we were describing how Lord Krishna is saying that this great sage Bhrigu, that he is a representative of Krishna. Bhrigu resides in the higher planets. There's a special planets where these Saptarishis, the 7 great sages, the mental sons of Lord Brahma. Brahma is so powerful that he could create sons just by thinking about them. He created the 4 Kumaras. He created the Saptarishis. And this Bhrigu is considered the topmost sage. He has also written a book called the Bhrigu Samhita, which is, Prabhupada refers to this in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. This is an astrological treatise in which everyone has his future described. The future of every human being is described. And in that book, someone can put their name and they will understand what they will become or what they will be. So this is very important point. These great personalities we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, there was a dispute amongst the demigods trying to find out who is the supreme, who is the topmost supreme, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, who is the supreme? So Bhrigu went to Lord Vishnu and he put his foot on his chest, and Lord Vishnu was not disturbed, and it left an imprint called the Bhrigu Pada. He was testing whether or not Lord Vishnu would be disturbed. No disturbance. Of course, Lakshmi, the consort of Lord Vishnu, was not very happy with this. Very disturbed. So we see here in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is establishing something very important. Of the sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names. Yajnanam japa yajñosmi. For those who are initiated devotees, or even aspiring devotees, we know how important it is to chant. Chant japa, the chanting of the Mahamantra. Anybody who is even a little familiar with the philosophy of Vaishnavism and Gaudiya Vaishnavism in particular know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended this chanting of Hare Krishna. Just recently, one devotee sent me a text on WhatsApp how there was one devotee that he was claiming that he was either a representation or an incarnation of Haridas Thakur, and he was able to chant 64 rounds in 2 hours and 10 minutes. I said, okay, well, that's interesting. Usually it takes a little longer than that to chant 64 rounds, but interesting. And another devotee who also saw the same commentary is this person gone mad? Is he a Sahajiya or something? To claim that he is some kind of a special avatar of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Haridas Thakur? A devotee never thinks like that. A devotee always thinks that I am the lowest and Krishna is the greatest. Let me engage in his service. That's the whole meaning of the Mahamantra. The Mahamantra, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is a prayer to Krishna to engage us in his service, praying to the Lord's energy, Radharani, that we want to be engaged in the Lord's service. It is simple. It has been made easy in this age of Kali. I've often related the history of the Maha Mantra, which is given in a book called the Kali Santarano Upanishad. It is a very small discussion between Lord Brahma and Narada Muni, when Narada Muni inquired from Lord Brahma, how will the living entities be delivered in the age of Kali Yuga? And Lord Brahma described that this chanting of these 16 names of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That these 16 names, iti shodashakam namnam, shodashakam means 16, kali kalmashanashanam, all the inauspiciousness and the contamination of the age of Kali, nashanam, can be cleared up, can be purified. Nata paratarupeyaha, there is no superior method of self-realization than this chanting of Hare Krishna. Sarva Vedeshu Drishyati, because somebody may bring the argument, well, there's so many other methods recommended in the Vedas to give charity, to practice meditation, to go visit place of pilgrimage, to build wells, to build schools, to build feeding places. There's so many different recommendations which are described in the Vedic scriptures and other scriptures to give charity to the poor. It says that there is no higher method of spiritual advancement and spiritualization than this chanting. Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. This is the recommendation of all the Vedas. This is very important. Prabhupada quotes that verse in some purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Adi Lila. And there are numerous recommendations given by acharyas. Kriteya dhyaratu Vishnum tretayam yajatu makhe dwapare paricharyayam kalo tadhari kirtanat. That in this age of Kali Yuga, simply this chanting of Hare Krishna is sufficient. In previous ages, it was a different situation. In Satya Yuga, meditation, Treta Yuga, big temple worship, all different kinds of methods. But in this age, this chanting is the recommended method by all authorities, all predecessor acharyas. And we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasize this chanting. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, eva kevalam, kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyata. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is an explanation of why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized this particular verse. It is described, it is not this spiritual realization in this age is not attained by practice of karma, yoga, mental speculation, jnana. None of these methods will achieve the desired goal. Simply this chanting of the Maha Mantra. But somebody may say, but I've got so many different activities, wife and family and job and so many different responsibilities. Yes, that may be there. That's okay. So the Srimad Bhagavatam also recommends that even if one is desirous of liberation or desirous of material enjoyment or has no desire at all, still one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tivrena bhaktiyogena yajeta purusham param akama sarvakamova mokshakama udharadihi. That even if one is mokshakama, desires liberation, or no desire for material sense enjoyment, when some persons are freed from this desire from this material world in any situation, whether one is desirous of sense enjoyment or not desirous of sense enjoyment, one should engage in the service of the personality of Godhead and dedicated to chant his name and his qualities and his activities. This is very important recommendation. we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are so many stories and recommendations by great sages, great accomplished personalities who have performed so many austerities, who have achieved very high level of spiritual understanding, of spiritual realization, that they recommend this chanting. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrutavyaha Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Itchatabayam. There was a great king, Maharaj Katabanga, who fought for the demigods. He fought to win a big battle for the demigods, and he requested them one favor. He says, when am I going to die? They say, you're going to die very soon, within a few moments. And they told him, just focus. Tasmad Bharata Sarva Bhagavan Ishvara Harihi. Focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, the controller of everyone. Shrutavyaha Kirtitavyaha. Hear, chant, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the recommendation of all the Shastras, of all the Acharyas, and the great message which has been brought by our spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you very much, Yashodanandana Prabhu from Twain Harte, California. And it's interesting to note that life is just a flash in eternity. As you were mentioning, death could come at any moment. But people think I will live on without any incident. This is the conditioning of the soul lost in this world of illusion, because life is very short. Prabhupada explains it's like the turning on and off of a light switch. How fast is that? So in perspective, we think, oh, I'm going to live for 80 years. But in fact, that is insignificant in eternal time. It's not a long time. But under the influence of the modes of material nature, under the influence of Maya, we think everything is important, that we are important, that life is important. Yes, it is to get out of this prison house of material life. And I thought, Prabhu, that today's verse was very profound. Kṛṣṇa explains to Arjuna, of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names of Japa. I am. So this chanting of the holy names is non-different than Krishna. Krishna is present in his holy names, and he has revealed this powerful process to us during his appearance as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I've been reading forward Yashodanandana Prabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and where the Lord visits Sanatana Goswami. So in the Ancha Lila, Lord Chaitanya talks to Sanatana Goswami. This is text 65, chapter 4. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami, give up all your nonsensical desires, for they are unfavorable for getting shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Engage yourself in chanting and hearing. Then you will soon achieve the shelter of Krishna without a doubt. So we'll move forward here. This I found quite profound. Text 71. Lord Chaitanya again speaking. So God is speaking to us through the agent of the pure devotee, Krishna. This is direct connection with the Supreme Lord through the bona fide spiritual master. Of the 9 processes of devotional service, The most important is to always chant the holy name of Krishna. If one does so, avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses, one can very easily obtain the most valuable love of Godhead. We'll read the purport in a second. But Prabhupada mentions, in fact, if one wants to be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, he has to commit to the chanting of a minimum of 16 rounds. That's approximately 27,400 names a day. And Yashodanandana Prabhu, it does take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to chant 16 rounds. This person that thinks they're Haridas Thakur, he is totally deluded. It's ridiculous. I did the calculations. It's 12 times that number of rounds. I think it's over 300 rounds a day. And it takes almost, it's 8 rounds an hour for 24 hours. You have to chant all day. So this person is just deluded, like a lot of people. So Krishna, without missing, Prabhupada told us, once you take initiation, you have to chant your whole life, not just start and stop. Now, some of us may have fallen off the wagon, let's say, but as long as you get back on and you start up the process of chanting the names again and don't stop, then you're connected once again to your spiritual master and his instructions, and you're connected to Krishna through his holy name, because Krishna is non-different than his name. And this is the basis of devotional service in this Kali Yuga, is to chant your japa every day. Now, someone recently, or actually about a year and a half ago, he criticized us. He called this, "What do you think you're doing?" One of our God brothers. "You're running a boot camp, a Krishna boot camp." Of course, he wasn't chanting his rounds. And he was upset that we were just repeating what Prabhupada told us, that you should chant your rounds. But he was upset. Why are you doing this? What is this, some kind of Krishna boot camp? It's not that. Prabhupada's instructions were given to us when you took initiation. What's the matter with you? Is your false ego so deep that you can't hear the philosophy because you think that someone else that's a disciple of Prabhupada can't say the same words that Prabhupada told us? It's not us that's telling them. It's Prabhupada speaking to them. But this is going on. But why? Because Krishna's name and Krishna's form are non-different. And I want to read this purport, and then we'll turn the class and discussion back to Yashoda. Text 71. Of the 9 processes of devotional service, the most important is to always chant the holy names of Krishna. If one does so, avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses, one can very easily obtain the most valuable love of Godhead. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhu gives the following directions in his Bhakti Sandarbha. We'll just move, for time's benefit, we'll move forward. Chanting the holy name is the chief means of attaining love of Godhead. This chanting or devotional service does not depend on any paraphernalia, nor on having taken birth in a good family. By humility and meekness, one attracts the attention of Krishna. That is the verdict of the Vedas. Therefore, if one becomes very humble and meek, he can easily attain the lotus feet of Krishna in this age of Kali. That is the fulfillment of all great sacrifices, penances, and austerities. Because when one achieves ecstatic love of Godhead, he attains the complete perfection of life. Therefore, whatever one does in executing devotional service must be accompanied with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The chanting of the holy name of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, has been praised by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Namstaka. O Harinam, the tips of the toes of your lotus feet are constantly being worshipped by the glowing radiance emanating from the string of gems known as the Upanishads. The crown jewels of all the Vedas, you are eternally adored by liberated souls such as Narada and Shukadev. O Harinam, I take complete shelter of you. Srila Sanatana Goswami has praised the chanting of the holy name as follows in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, chapter 1, verse 9. All glories to the all blissful holy name of Sri Krishna, which causes the devotee to give up all conventional religious duties, meditation, and worship, when somehow or other, uttered even once by a living entity, the holy name awards him liberation. The holy name of Krishna is the highest nectar. It is my life and my only treasure. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami says, O king, constant chanting of the holy names of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. Similarly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said in his Sikshastika, Trinada pi sunichena tarora pi sahishnuna amanina amanadena kirtaniya sadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Regarding the 10 offenses in chanting the holy name, please refer to Adi Leela, chapter 8, verse 24. So please go to that and read it later, Prabhus. Yashodanandana Prabhu, could you continue on for us?
Very nice section, very beautiful section. There's an interesting conversation Prabhupada had with one Dr. Patel in Bombay on April 3rd, 1974. April 3rd, 1974, in the morning walk. The reason I say it's interesting is what happened is this Dr. Patel obviously had memorized this entire chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit. And he's repeating different verses from the Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada is making comments on the walk. It's quite fascinating how Prabhupada is dealing with this, especially when it comes to, it says, Prabhupada, the Samavedas mean the realization of God by singing, by music. That is Samaveda. Dr. Patel, by music? I am the soul of the music. Prabhupada, yes. Therefore, Hari Kirtana. Hari Kirtana is Samaveda, glorifying the Supreme. That is said in some other place. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudraha Stuvanti Divyestaver Vede Sangapada Kramopanishader. Dr. Patel. Kramopanishader Gayanti Yam Samaga. Prabhupada Gayanti. So Gayanti chanting is following the Samaveda. And Samaveda, Krishna says, I'm especially Samaveda. Dr. Patel, Devanam Asmi Vasavaha, Indriyanam Manaschasmi, Bhutanam Asmi Chaitana. I am, Chaitana means proper life, knowledge. Dr. Patel, Rudranam Shankaraschasmi, Vittesho Yaksharakshasam, Vasunam Pavakaschasmi, Meruhu Shikarinamaham, Purodasam Chamukyam Mam, Viddi Parta Brahaspatim, Sinanina Maham Skandaha Sarasam Asmi Sagaraha. Prabhupada, Skanda means Kartikeya. Dr. Prabhupada, yes, Kartikeya. Maharishinam Briguraham Giramasmi Kamaksharam. I am Om. Prabhupada, yes. Yajnanam Chapayagnosi. Prabhupada. Yes, Yagne Samkirtana Prayer Yajantihi Sumedasaha from Bhagavatam 11:532. This is their Japa Yoga, Hare Krishna. This is the first class. So it's quite important that Prabhupada explains how this chanting of Japa is called Japa Yoga. Very, very nice explanation by Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Yes. And so we always stress to our members, all of us, to make yourself strong spiritually through the practice of bhakti yoga, because you cannot save anyone unless you save yourself. Dharma Bhavana in Dallas, Texas. Such a nice sweater you've got on today and a bright
Oh, Hare
face.
Krishna, thank you.
Please
Yeah, we were
share some insights.
interesting class today. We spoke about Brigham Mooney. All these illustrious stories come up because they illustrate so many things. How he was a little bit of maybe say offensive, but Lord Vishnu did not take the offense by putting his feet on Vishnu's chest as an offense, because Vishnu. But at the same time, Lord Vishnu may not take such offenses seriously, but offenses to the Vaishnava devotee can become very, very serious. And just how neophyte devotee, one of the indications of a neophyte is that he cannot understand who is an advanced devotee and who is not. Neophyte cannot have very difficult time associating with devotees because it's easy to misunderstand. And sometimes a neophyte may see somebody else insult a devotee or a class of devotees. It may be almost like a contagious disease. Oh, so-and-so is insulting. Maybe I should do like that too. So I was going to read a little section from Srimad Bhagavatam, another illustrious story about Dhruva Maharaj. We remember how Dhruva Maharaj had a brother named Uttama, and Uttama was the favored brother, and Dhruva Maharaj was not born of the favored queen, so he was not as much favored by the king. This is Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 23. Sometime in the future, your brother, Uttama, will go hunting in the forest. And while absorbed in hunting, he will be killed. Your stepmother, Saruchi, being maddened upon the death of her son, will go to search him out in the forest, but she will be devoured by a forest fire. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj came to the forest to search out the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a revenging spirit against his stepmother. His stepmother had insulted Dhruva, who was not an ordinary person, but a great Vaishnava. An offense to the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is the greatest offense in this world. Because of having insulted Dhruva Maharaj, Suruchi would become mad upon the death of her son and would enter a forest fire, and thus her life would be ended. This was specifically mentioned by the Lord to Dhruva because he was determined for revenge against her. From this, we should take the lesson that we should never try to insult a Vaishnava. Not only should we not insult a Vaishnava, but we should not insult anyone unnecessarily. When Saruchi insulted Dhruva Maharaj, he was just a child. She, of course, did not know that Dhruva was a great recognized Vaishnava. And so her offense was committed unknowingly. When one serves a Vaishnava unknowingly, one still gets a good result. And if one unknowingly insults a Vaishnava, one suffers the bad result. A Vaishnava is especially favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pleasing him or displeasing him directly affects the pleasure and displeasure of the Supreme Lord. There's a little more to the. I'll just finish up here. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his 8 stanzas of prayer to the spiritual master, has sung, Yashya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada. By pleasing the spiritual master, who is a pure Vaishnava, one pleases the personality of Godhead. But if one displeases the spiritual master, one does not know where he is going. All right, thank you. Haribol.
Wow.
Very, very interesting. Yes, and really that's the theme of our mission here, is to serve Srila Prabhupada. Because one who says, he is my devotee, Krishna tells us this. Prabhupada explains it in the Nectar of Devotion. One who says he is my devotee is not my devotee. One who is the devotee of my devotee, he is my devotee. So this disciplic succession, the following of this process by serving the pure devotee, and also, let's not exclude his bona fide disciples. That is also very important. Prabhupada is not without fruit. He made so many good devotees, and we're seeing so many wonderful people coming, whether new or old, coming to our classes 3 times a week, being a part of this program of Shravanam Kirtanam in association with other devotees. Those people are also bona fide representatives of the spiritual master, and they're also teaching others how to do the same thing. That is important to understand. We should not minimize people for some kind of material, mundane reason. You have to be able to see everyone according, as you said, Prabhu, according to their service and their actions and their commitment to the mission of Lord Chaitanya. So we have Jonas Priya with us from Hawaii, who is one of our senior godbrothers. We'd love him to share some of his realizations with us this morning at this Bhagavad Gita as it is class.
Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please accept my humble obeisances. Aloha. Yes, I think these verses of the Gita, especially the chanting where Krishna says that he is the japa. And so we're known as the Hare Krishna movement. So this should be a very important verse for us, of course. And the importance of chanting the Maha Mantra is that we have to be following the instructions. So it's one of the 10 offenses to chant the holy name without following the instructions of the spiritual master. So this is the most important part, that we have to, when we take initiation, we take a contract. It's like signing a contract with the spiritual master that, yes, I will follow these 4 rules and chant 16 rounds minimum. And if we break that contract, then the spiritual master is not obliged to take care of us or Krishna. But on the contrary, it's stated that if we chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 principles and act as devotees, then Krishna is forced to not let us fall down. So this is very, very important, that if we strictly follow this, then we know that we have the support of the Guru and we have the support of Krishna. But on the other hand, people complain, oh, I've been chanting 40, 20, 40, 30, 50 years, and I'm still not getting anywhere. Yeah, well, then if that's what's happening in our life, then we have to very carefully examine where are we lacking, and pray to Krishna to help us rectify that, and then we'll experience the effect of the Maha Mantra if we chanting as purely as we can, with mind focus and with all intent, and pronouncing every syllable. Prabhupada mentioned many times people that go Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. This is not Maha Mantra. Maha Mantra is very clearly every single syllable in the mantra. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you. It's we used to have expressions. Yashodanandana Prabhu in the temple in Toronto, dive bomber japa. Of course, back in the days, we used to work so hard and follow strictly. So in the morning, you'd be like this. Your head would go down. You'd fall asleep while you chanted your rounds. It was difficult. One time I caught Hiranyagarbha. What's his other name now? the one that became the disciple of Ali Prashad back in 1974 or something. He was with us in Toronto. One time I caught him on Yonge Street. He had fallen asleep in a storefront well with his Brahman thread out around his thumb, and his thumb was all pink or purple. He had fallen asleep right on Yonge Street. So, of course, that's not being attentive to the japa or the chanting of the japa to the Gayatri mantra. But it was difficult. We used to fall asleep, yes. And then we used to have a term, jibber japa, where you make up a different mantra as you're chanting. You don't repeat the words. I've heard one of these so-called new gurus from the West Coast, Giriraj. I watched his japa class, and he did a very fine representation of dive bomber japa and jibber japa. Just left out most of the holy name, like that. So this, of course, happens, and it's not to criticize, but of course, it's in his particular role, he's taking some kind of position as an acharya. So try to, for all of us, when you're chanting your japa, we recommend you play the japa tapes that Prabhupada has recorded. They're a wonderful companion for all of us when we do our rounds. And in this way, you can, get the benefit of the association of Prabhupada chanting the holy name and stay fixed on that process with him. Yashodanandana Prabhu, I see you've got some comments there, please.
Just earlier, there was a little note from Paranjan about this comment by one Swami in India, in Andhra Pradesh, with regard to the mission drift. And I was wondering if Paranjan could elaborate a little bit on that and the reason why that's important. I think the one thing that the Swami did not address is what is the root cause of this mission drift or deviation from the original mission. Maybe if Paranjan is still there, maybe he can comment on it.
Haribo, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can, Prabhu.
Oh, okay.
The Neo-Krishna movement. I saw his talk, by the way. It was quite, speculative and concocted. But at any rate, that's what he did. Go ahead, please.
Well, yeah, it's, really what's happened, Bhakti Vikas is pretty much admitting that ISKCON has just become a neo-Hindu movement. And he mentions, for example, that a lot of the Hindus currently involved with ISKCON are engaged in demigod worship. They worship Lord Shiva. There was an initiated ISKCON devotee wearing a beard, chanting Om Namo Shivaya in ISKCON temple. So he's admitting that things are gradually going in that direction. And in addition, a lot of these Hindus are part of the Hindutva movement, which is the Hindu nationalist movement. So they're trying to, emphasize their birth. And so what I mentioned in my analysis is the Prabhupada said he preached for 40 years in India with no success because in India, everybody knows everything already. So he didn't have a lot of confidence in preaching to the Hindus overall. Prabhupada didn't emphasize that. And he said a lot of negative things when we were in India about the Hindus in general. He wasn't very enthusiastic about having them take over ISKCON. He also said, if the Hindus take over ISKCON, it will become a business. And Bhakti Vikas admits that most of these Hindus are business people. He says they are Vaishyas, or business people. So exactly what Prabhupada predicted could happen and would happen if you make this a Hindu movement. it will become a business and it will be operated by business people. And gradually the Westerners are being purged out. I had one friend, he was one of the last Western people in the Chicago temple, and he just got booted out by the Hindu management board. So this is another thing, they don't have a temple president anymore. They have a Hindu committee. And, the Hindu committee brings in all their Hindu ideas. So it's not just mission drift. The mission has disappeared. There is no Hare Krishna movement now. It's a Hindu movement. He says he went to a temple and it was all Hindus and they had Hindu ceremonies and there was no Western people. So basically they salvaged the buildings by handing it off to the Hindus, which is the only good thing is that at least the buildings are still functioning. Otherwise, the whole thing just would have been closed down. The buildings would have been vacated, which they were, and nobody would have taken it over. And we would just have an empty shell of nothing, and none of the buildings would even be occupied or functioning at the moment. So he's kind of admitting that, but it's not something that the GBC has realized recently, because way back in 1988, Lokanath Swami said ISKCON is a ghost town and it's running on a skeleton crew. So they've known this for a long time, but he's trying to explain it. And of course, my first question is, whose hands were on the steering wheel? It went off course. Who was driving the boat off course? And it was you, Bhakti Vikas. You were one of the big people promoting the GBC. I had a big confrontation with Bhakti Vikas when I was challenging Jai Tirtha. He wanted to keep Jai Tirtha on as the Acharya. And he eventually, Jai Pataka came and intervened at that time. And he was one of the driving forces in having me kicked out of ISKCON, Jai Pataka. And then shortly after that, Bhakti Vikas took sannyas from Jai Pataka. So their whole mission at that time was to establish the false gurus, and Bhakti Vikas was a prominent prime mover in that, and he has been all along. So he can't really he's not blaming this on any specific person, but that is the problem. The blame goes to them, all the people who supported this process, and he is one of them. Now they're struggling. That's all that's going on now. They're struggling to explain it all away, and there's no good explanation. You sacrificed ISKCON for economic means, and now it's just an economic movement run by business people, and it's just a mundane business, a Hindu operation, and that's very much against everything Prabhupada wanted. He wanted the Western people to be made into devotees, not Hindus, and where's the Harinam? Yeah, he asked the question. Yeah, well, you kicked out all the Harinam people, and so on and so forth. But anyway, I made an analysis of it. He made a second part of it, and like I say, they're just struggling now to explain their situation. But you deviated. You tried to make imitations of Prabhupada, and that is not going to work, and it's just not ever working. There's so many attempts have been made to imitate Krishna, imitate pure devotees, and it never works. But getting one last point, and the incarnation of Krishna comes when there's trouble on the earth, when the earth is overburdened, and at the moment it is severely overburdened. So he appears as his holy name, and that's it. That's how he manifests now. So if we don't take shelter of that, or we miss the opportunity, we will not be saved. The only salvation now, the only incarnation of Krishna now is his holy name. Haribol.
Yes. Now, just before we finish up, and I'd like Yashoda to make a final comment, I wanted to say that I did get a chance, Paranjana, to watch it, and the real reason why this person is misleading people is because he is posing, posturing, and pretending to be some kind of acharya in that compromised movement. This whole guru issue is the cause of the fall down of that great movement from its exalted position to the position of a Hinduized, all kinds of deviant practices that are going on in that movement. That is basically it. Just see in Toronto, we bought a church there that Prabhupada was specifically very excited about. In one of the most important streets in Canada. The building is worth over $40 million in today's market, and it has become totally Hinduized. There is no temple president. There is an outside part-time management board, and the whole thing is unfortunately gone in the wrong direction. And a great movement has been destroyed by manufacturing and concocting a philosophy to suit their guru business. This is the fact, everyone. Do not become bewildered. If you think we're wrong, then there are lots of groups you can join, because we are not going to change our position here based on our experience amongst all of us of what has gone down and what we can see with our own simple intelligence. Yashodanandana Prabhu, please.
I'm just in the process of putting a quote from Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, this was a letter on the 21st of October, 1969 to one devotee, Yamunacharya, October 21st, 1969, in a letter to Yamunacharya. Similarly, if we hear the unadulterated message of Lord Kṛṣṇa from the authorized source, we will immediately be in contact with the transcendental atmosphere. But if we listen to someone who is presenting a broken, concocted version of Bhagavad Gita, that will be useless. So try to understand our philosophy very sincerely and carefully. Well, the point is that Prabhupada saw at different times in the growth of his movement how there were concoctions and manufactured ideas which were being introduced by different devotees. Now, understandably, many of these devotees were neophytes and they were not very experienced, but Prabhupada could see that this is very dangerous for the expansion of the Krishna consciousness movement. Because we saw many times Prabhupada was asked the question, why was the disciplic succession broken? And different explanation, Prabhupada, because there were false spiritual masters. Another time is when the message was not being presented properly. Another time in Australia, they asked Prabhupada that question. Prabhupada gave the example, just like in my presence, you're following, you're preaching. But after I depart, if you do not follow, if you do not preach, then it is broken. And the problem we have now is we got people that are presenting themselves as authorities, as acharyas, without authorization from Prabhupada. Prabhupada did not appoint any acharyas, any successor acharyas. That is the foremost, biggest concoction and deviation that they have imposed upon the movement. They have manufactured this false interpretation. That's why there's a mission drift on account of disobedience of Srila Prabhupada's instruction. That and so many other things that they have concocted. So devotees should not be bewildered why there is a problem. Prabhupada has given so many different explanations. All we have to do is take shelter of his explanation and his teachings. Hare Krishna.
Yes, he's given us extensive direction in his letters, in his books, in his lectures, exactly what we should do. So all we have to do, everyone, is just listen carefully. And by the way, there's a tremendous resource online for all of us of Prabhupada's lectures to listen to them on an ongoing basis throughout the day when you're working in the kitchen or whatever service you can do if you're not occupied with your work in a specific manner. you can constantly hear. You can hear in your car when you're driving back home from work. You can chant your rounds while you're throughout the day, and constantly stay fixed up in the transcendental sound vibration of the Krishna conscious Bhakti Yoga system. So thank you, everyone. I wanted to remind everyone that we do have our classes. We have almost 250 programs on our Krishna conscious Hare Krishna Society YouTube channel. So if you go to the YouTube channel, please subscribe. Recommend other people to subscribe as well. We're trying to build our subscription base so more people get a chance. So many people are listening throughout the world, and we do appreciate that so much. And also, we have a monthly newsletter. So if you subscribe, you'll be sent that monthly newsletter. And we're producing some cards that you can distribute in your particular area. You'll be able to get the artwork and print it out, invitations to come to the online classes and discussions that we present 3 times a week. So like that, all types of different tools and facility for you to stay connected with the bona fide disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam class at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Eastern Canada. So mark it down in your calendar. All glories to the Sankirtan mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaurata Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaurata Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaurata Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Haribo, Haribo.
Vijay Pandit Prabhu, come va, come va?
Va bene, grazie, va molto bene.